Hi, American Coaster enthusiasts. I'm here in Blood on the Bayou at Kings Dominion, and we're going to get some behind the scenes look. And I'm going to let Steve introduce you, self, and what you do for Kings Dominion.
Cool, yeah. So I'm Steve Foda, and I am the haunt guy here at Kings Dominion. And basically, I design, build, decorate, light all of the mazes and the scare zones. Of course, I have a lot of creative people that help me, but it's a monster of an undertaking. We usually start in March, depending on how many mazes we have every year. We start with the design, then we have to put in the orders, everything from wood orders, as for instance this, artificial tree orders. These trees came from the same company that Bass Pro Shop that makes their trees. So all of the props have to be thought of. So when I design a maze, particularly this one, if you notice, we are on decks because you are in the bayou. So this entire maze, I would say 95% of this maze is built on decks to give you the illusion that you are in the bayou. Now, some of our sister parks have water in their mazes. I elected not to do that because I think water in mazes is a disaster. It's too messy, it's moldy, and it's dangerous. So without putting water down here, when the show lights are on, you really can't tell.
Right.
And the monsters have access to the areas that are supposed to be water. So yeah, there's a lot of thought into this. And this maze is very unique in the way that all our other mazes are interior buildings. So what we had to do to create the bayou is the first two rooms you go into, the Marie Laveau Museum and the Gentleman's Lounge is interior. Then you step outside into the exterior. So that's why we finished all the exterior buildings of the interiors so that it will give you that feel that you're going inside to outside. It was the first time we ever did it. For instance, this is a big church. So, as you can see, it's very Gothic. You can see the entrance to the cemetery here. Then you go inside that church. So you look back further through here and you see all the little shanty shacks throughout the bayou. So it was very challenging, and working on a space that is 50 by 100. You've got to pack a big punch in that amount of space. So we try to utilize every single space. For instance, the wall here, we use that wall as if they were facades for crypts. And we do fun things like the people who help me, the craftsmen, you can see that they're all represented here. Another cool thing we do in our mazes is we bring back some of the older mazes, some of the elements that are in the older mazes. Slaughterhouse up here, some of our skeleton keys on these ID signs. So it's pretty cool, and the guests love to see that. So
Definitely, you're tying together that history and those moments of memories that they have
Exactly.
from the past times. And that's one of the things is coming back and remembering the fun you had.
yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have the 20th anniversary next year. So I'm hoping to bring more of that fun back for next year. Of course, I can't talk too much, but as far as the new product next year for our 20th, we really have to knock it out of the park. So, for example, this is the best and latest and greatest. We have to continue to raise that bar to compete, and we stand alone. I mean, we do some things very well, some things we have to work on, but I think where the mazes are concerned, we have got to where we need to be. So
This one is phenomenal. Where do you get your inspiration from for the next maze?
a lot of it, like the ideas come from corporate.
Okay.
So then once it comes from corporate, like for instance, I've always wanted to do a wax museum. So I think that may be in the future. But as a kid, you watch those old Boris Karloff movies, wax museums, all that. That's kind of like Frankenstein, all those classics. So, and then, I think differently than most people. When I go places and look at buildings or interiors, I'm like, wow, how did they build that? Or how can I replicate that? So I look at things very differently. So it's just a constant learning process, and the love of what I do that makes us successful. And the fact that I have a lot of very talented people.
That is all the difference.
Yeah, without them, we are nothing. So the monsters, for instance, without good monsters, these are just pretty museums. So you'll see tonight the difference with the monsters. It all comes together. you know, the set, the lighting, the music, and the monsters all comes together for the big picture. So
It really does. So you mentioned your inspiration of the mazes, but where did your inspiration to get involved in this come from? What's your history?
my history, okay, so in the early 70s, I'm not going to divulge my age, I was somewhat of a strange kid. You know, I just loved horror movies.
Okay.
And for instance, you know, when I would see a parade, like the Rose Bowl parade or something, I would go in the backyard and build a parade float. That might not be glamorous and grand. I was taking my sister's dolls and doing, you know, putting motors in them or fish tanks and doing weird things with them. So I had my first haunted house when I was 13 years old. And I built all the sets in Maryland, and my family owned a campground on Lake Gaston. We shipped all of those when I was 13 years old in the late 70s. The first night we opened, we made $800 cash. That was in the late 70s. That was a lot of money.
A lot of money.
So my parents were like, what do we do with this guy? You know? So then when I graduated, I had a professional haunted house
Okay.
when I was 18 in Waldorf, Maryland. And then I went off to Disney. Worked for Disney for a while. Then I went to school for special effects in Pittsburgh. And, you know, there was no computer-aided tools then. So everything I do, I draw by hand. I still do. You know, it's old school, but it's very effective for me. And it's just, I love to do it. Like, I can work 100 hours a week to get all this done before we open. And it doesn't bother me at all. But because I just love what I do, and the reward is when it's all finished, people like yourselves and our guests that come through our mazes, I'm just like, wow, we really built that. But when you're in the rush of building it, you know, it's kind of, it just flashes by. And you don't really realize, wow, we built this. You know, like the 50-foot fishing vessel in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, when I told the managers we're putting a 50-foot fishing vessel in the back, and they're like, okay. So it's just, that's my reward, you know. And to have the creative freedoms. I have all the freedoms I need here. So about
Nice.
95% of what I design, we build.
Okay.
So,
That's huge. I mean,
Yep.
that says so much for you career-wise to
Yeah.
have that trust.
yep, and working so many other places, Smithsonian, you know, Steve Wynn in Vegas. This, by far, is the best because I'm able to do everything that I want to do. And they trust in me, and it happens.
You're producing an
So.
amazing product.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I mean, this, just seeing the detail in here, when you walk us through and we get
Yeah.
to see the detail and lights on, I am blown away about what's hiding in the dark. And,
Yeah,
and even though you can't see the detail,
yeah,
it immerses you in it so much that
Yeah.
you forget you're in a maze in an amusement park.
yep.
Yes.
So I just try, like these bones, for instance, the faux finish on these bones. A lot of people wouldn't see that, you know, but it's just part of, let's get the big picture right, turn the lights down, and hopefully we can pick up all the major elements that you need.
Maze coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing some behind the scenes with our
Sure.
members and
Alrighty.
for taking us on tour during Fall Thrill Fest.
Great. You guys have a great time. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.